Folks, happy Friday and welcome to the Freedom from the Press podcast. My name is Jason Robertson and I'm here with my partner in crime.
I'm Peterson. Thanks for joining us today, folks. It is a doozy of a week for Kamala Harris. Jason, it's kind of been a doozy of 4 or 5 years for Kamala Harris. But the last week alone, I don't know, just when you think you've hit rock bottom, Kamala Harris surprises us with even more.
You know, it's so funny. I was talking to the wife this morning and I'm like, some of this stuff is so ridiculous. We're going to show some just ridiculous tweets or content videos and the media running cover for her. And I'm like, it can't be possible that there's enough American people to vote for the retarded Indian from Canada that she becomes president. Like, God, I pray that that's not the case.
I do have to fact check you, though. It's a quibble, but it is a fact check because we're on Facebook. Starting in 2020, Jason, she was no longer Indian. I just need to clear the record. Don't get us nuked on Facebook, please.
Wait. You're saying when she ran for district attorney in San Francisco that has a large Indian from India, not Native American population, that she marketed herself as an Indian? And now she's marketing herself as a black person?
After George Floyd happened. I don't know. It could be a coincidence.
Oh, my gosh. Todd, you're talking crazy conspiracy.
Where's the tinfoil hat, folks?
Tinfoil hat. You know, I should say, too, Todd and I are really fired up today. Todd is fully caffeinated. So there is a chance we have to flip over to Rumble only earlier. Because for those who don't know, we've been streaming for a while now. We do Facebook, YouTube. You can find us on Rumble at The American Tribune. It's the name of our properties. It's the name of our video channel. Todd does videos every day. And we're going to get fired up talking about this stuff. So there is a good chance that we're going to have to switch over to Rumble.
If you're on Facebook or YouTube and suddenly you're like, where did the feed go? That's because we had to hit the panic button because we don't want to lose all of our properties. But Jason, full disclosure, you and I are real human beings. We live real lives when the camera's off. I have 2 kids that I was alone with last night. Didn't sleep more than an hour straight through the night. My family decided that we don't need sleep. We're just going to wake up at 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m. We're going to cry. We want to cuddle with dad. So overcaffeinated, underslept. It is a great combination to go on some wild political rants today, I think.
Oh, yeah. And public service announcement, too. So next Friday, we probably won't be broadcasting. We might pre-record something. We're working with a group that's starting a website called republic.us. So you can go there now. It's starting to get up and running. What the concept is if you take your conservatives that are your MAGA conservatives that are sick of a corrupt government and a big government and regulation, and if you take the handful of Democrats you know that aren't insane, they aren't blue-haired cat ladies that want to cut the genitals off children. They're just people that were Democrat and thought we should have a little higher welfare. They aren't communists. Those people do exist. What Republic's trying to do is bring those two pools of people together. Say, listen, we agree on 90% of stuff. Maybe we disagree on some, even abortion they agree on, you know, like a standard Democrat will say, hey, you know what? We don't want third-term abortions, but we think we should have abortions. And I think even your standard normal MAGAs can come around and say, okay, let's just agree 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, something like that. Let's move on. Let's fix these 1,000 other problems we have. Let's just pick a number. And so republic.us is working on creating a platform to bring people like that together, because what happens is the power structure, the elites, they keep left and right citizens fighting each other so that they can continue robbing us and distorting things and taxing you and sending more money to Ukraine or whatever they're doing. So we're actually going down to meet with them. We've been working with them for a little while now. So we're going to be down and checking out. They got a studio and all kinds of cool stuff. So that'll be pretty awesome. So if we're not on, that would be great. Hey, and shout out to Fally. I only use Rumble, screw Facebook. Good morning, gentlemen. And Fally was a great one. Fally found us on Facebook and said, screw Facebook, let's go to Rumble. So
we've been happy ever since. Yeah. So folks, we got the count up there, several hundred. Join us over on Rumble here. Make the switch today. You will not regret it. I do have some comments about your remarks. Number one, leaving communist Minnesota for the free state of Florida, always a good decision, even if it's just for a couple days. But folks, when you look at, I can't get over this, that Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney are endorsing Kamala Harris. Jason, even I am old enough, and I'm a younger guy, but I am old enough to remember when Dick Cheney was vice president. He was literally the first incarnation of Hitler. Donald Trump became the second one later on. Dick Cheney was Darth Vader. He was evil. He was getting kids killed in the Middle East for oil. And not even like a generation later, he is endorsing Kamala Harris, and people are like, oh, we got Dick Cheney. This is the best thing ever. Like, if this does not scream establishment, I don't know what does. You've got Dick Cheney, you've got Adam Kinzinger, you got Liz Cheney, you've got the rhinos and the Democrats and the establishment all humming along. And to your point about Republic, that's what we're trying to do here. Most of the country is not insane. RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, former Democrats because they believed in what a traditional Democrat did, like, let's discuss taxation and welfare state, within regular norms. That is not the case anymore. You've got the lunatics in the establishment against you, the American citizen. I don't know, Jason.
Just
Dick
to
Cheney's
add on to
endorsement.
that,
If you are voting for Kamala Harris, you are literally voting for Dick Cheney at this point, and he murdered Americans to get rich off of oil in the Middle East. And he murdered millions of them, by the way, too. Nobody seems to care about that.
So I got to say, almost my whole life, I talked about the uniparty. Government's corrupt. Republicans and Democrats are just two branches of the same tree. They're screwing over everyday American citizens. They're working together with the military-industrial complex to send white trash like me over to some godforsaken desert to get killed. My whole life, I've felt this way. President Trump came out, and it was great because it's like, wow, people are seeing this stuff. The media is complicit in this power structure that is just ruining Americans. And it's not like there's one evil bad guy behind it. It's really just a striation of the rich and powerful versus the rest of us. How can we tax them more? How can we make them work more? All that stuff. Well, now, if you can't take off the tinfoil hat after what we're seeing in this election, you're never going to wake up. Kamala Harris, Democrat, they're going full on socialist, right? They're in the pocket of all the media industrial complex, which, by the way, the media industrial complex, it all backs Kamala Harris. You got Harvey Weinstein. You got P. Diddy now, who's greasing up and having sex with everybody in town. You got the Epstein folks. And then you look now, who's endorsing her? The IRS union. How the heck is the IRS union doing it? The postal union. The union leadership. That was a great thing we talked about last week. The union leadership is endorsing Kamala Harris. The union workers are endorsing President Trump. Folks, the class battle between the rich and powerful and everyday citizens like us is right in front of you. And the Cheneys and the Kinzingers and all those people joining the Democrats, that just shows you we've been watching a wrestling show. Those people were never enemies. They played parts to fight each other and get us mad so that we fight each other too. Oh, maybe I had too much Split Rock coffee myself.
Yeah, I honestly don't get it. The last 4 years alone, between pandemic responses and policies that in hindsight, again, you were maybe censored for saying things. You were considered fringe. I think we have a little bit more information now. I won't go into weeds on that. But between that stuff, between the Kamala Harris campaign, CNN lied to you for 4 years about Joe Biden's senility. We have debunked the Charlottesville hoax, which should be the gateway hoax to debunk everything Trump has said. If you are a Democrat and an honest thinking person, and you're like, hold on a second, I just watched 10 seconds of Trump speaking, and he said, I completely disavow neo-Nazis and white supremacists. I'm not talking about them. If you can debunk the Charlottesville hoax and you start being open to, well, they might have lied about that too. I know we keep humming along. CNN says Kamala Harris is the best thing ever. We're so glad to have a black woman candidate. Jason, it is unreal. I don't think if you haven't woken up in 2024, I hate to say it, I don't know if you're ever going to wake up.
Yeah, and I got to say, shout out to Mike Atkinson. Great comment. The only reason will people support and vote for Harris, she's a DEI hire. If you don't know what DEI means, look it up. The last 3.5 years with highest inflation is not the reason. They'd love spending a lot more. Oh, yeah, now over 21 million illegals coming to a town near Democrat and Rep voters. Safety is not a big deal with them or the voters. Yes, let us not forget no one can afford the American dream. This is what we're going to talk about. Mike, this is part of why we're going to invite you over to rumble.com for the last half hour, because it's funny as we were going through like the videos and stuff we want to do commentary on. It's like, okay, that's Rumble only. Some of the stuff we might try to float through on Facebook, but like Eric Adams and the nut job from Chicago are both having the same problem with these illegals. Eric Adams speaks out against it. And funny, Todd, what did the FBI do this week?
Is it like the first indictment ever of a New York City mayor? I'm sure they're all squeaky clean, but Eric Adams happens to say something about illegal immigration, and boom, the entire boot from the deep state and the federal government comes down on him. And you got that just coward Brandon Johnson in Chicago saying, bring them all in. You've got the black mayor of Chicago turning his back on every black in Chicago. Nobody cares about that. They'll still vote Democrat to make room for all the illegals. So it is something else, Jason. But yeah, we will definitely get into that story too.
Yeah, and it's fascinating too, because like I'm reading the indictment, it's like y'all are bringing out stuff from 10 years ago, and like these crimes don't even put him on the top 100 list for most corrupt politicians, and he's the one guy you're going after. Really?
I would think Fannie Willis would be gone after a little bit sooner than Eric Adams after the Fannie stuff. But wait, she went after Donald Trump, so it's okay.
Oh, that's right. Maybe they found Nathan Wade. Should we start with the first clip?
Yeah, let's do it, Jason. Let's do a little reformatting here. Let's make sure we're in our little boxes. But Jason, we talked about Kamala's train wreck of a week. Folks, if you haven't seen this clip, should we just play it, Jason? I don't even know how to set this up properly. This is so stupid. This is where we're at in 2024. This passes as legitimate media coverage if you're on the left. So much to talk about.
Just to frame up. So Kamala Harris did her first hard-hitting interview, and this gal, we should have played that video too. She was just out like 4 days ago on a panel saying Kamala doesn't need to really go into specifics. She's just running against Trump. That's all she needs to do. That's who's interviewing her. And this, let's play this one first.
Yeah. All right. So this, if you saw the other video, this is the same gal. She's going to be interviewing Kamala. This is her not that long ago, less than a week ago, saying, I don't need to interview Kamala. But listen to her thought process.
Questions. It's not too much to ask Kamala, say, are you for a Palestinian state if Hamas is going to run that state?
Okay.
Yes or no?
And let's say you don't like her answer. Are you going to vote for Donald Trump?
No, I'm not.
Kamala
I just said I'm not going to vote for her.
is not running for perfect.
Jason, I just got to point out, this is Brett Stevens, I believe. He's like the New York Times token conservative editorialist. He is about as conservative as the person sitting next to him. He will never vote for Trump. If you're not going to vote for Donald Trump, you don't get to call yourself a conservative. You don't get to call yourself right-leaning. You are basically a communist. That's my overcaffeinated rant. But Brett Stevens is absolutely useless. No, I'm not going to vote for Trump, even if she supports a Hamas-run state. No, I won't vote for Donald Trump, even if she'll import 20 million illegals. No, I won't vote for Trump if he's going to come after your kids or send money overseas to Eastern Europe. Complete buffoon, complete airhead. But that just shows you how insane she is, because he looks common sense to her. Unreal.
She's running
you want to jump
this against Trump. We have two choices. And so there are some things you might not know her answer to. And in 2024, unlike 2016 for a lot of the American people, we know exactly what Trump will do, who he is, and the kind of threat he is to democracy.
I don't know.
So it's unclear to me how there could be.
I'm going to bring my energy down. Can any one of those clapping seals actually point to a specific example of what Donald Trump did in 4 years, or what they think he will do based on past history that would make him a threat to democracy? Like, can anyone name an example? We have trolls in our chat that they come on Facebook and leave comments sometimes. If you're a Democrat, if you're trolling us right now, what is one example of Donald Trump being an actual threat to democracy? They say it, they clap for it, but help me out here, because maybe I
was going to say the only thing remotely that he did that was a threat to democracy is January 6th. And my opinion on January 6th is that was a Fed-infused protest that got overly aggressive, but Democrats do it all the time. Like, it's not like they're really going to overthrow the government. But yeah, like Todd said, pick something in the 4 years he did as president. Was it peace in the Middle East? Was it low inflation? Was it great interest rates? Was it no new wars? What was it that Donald Trump did that was a threat?
Fally had the same question. Yeah, I talk about this a lot in my videos on our Rumble channel, Jason. Like, it's time to stop playing defense. When they make stupid claims like this, don't defend Donald Trump. Make them defend their position. Give me an example of how he's a threat to democracy. I will wait, and I will let you look stupid while you're thinking about it. No more defense when you're talking to these leftists. It's time to go on the offense with that.
And informed
problem that a lot of people have with Kamala is we don't know her answer to anything, okay?
But you know his answer to everything.
And that's why I would never vote for him, and people shouldn't vote for him. But people also are expected to have some idea of what the program is of the person.
Jason, I can't. That's why I won't vote for him, but now I need to not vote for Kamala Harris. Like, you need to be a grown-up in this election. There are two candidates, Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. Only one of them is going to be president of this country. I don't care if you don't like them as people. I don't care if you don't like either of them for politicians worth. There are only two options. One of them will be in the White House. Be a grown-up and go vote. This man is absolutely useless.
You're supposed to vote for. You're just not supposed to say, well, you have to vote for Y because X is this, that, and the other. Let's find out a little bit more. And I don't think it's a lot to ask her to sit down for a real interview as opposed to a puff piece in which she describes like her feelings of growing up in Oakland with nice lawns.
Then I would just say to that, when you move to Nirvana, give me your real estate broker's number and I'll be your next door neighbor. We don't live there.
I mean, I feel like you're the dog we're trying to get in the car to go to the bed. You know.
Ouch. We're going to put that collar on your head for the rest of the day.
I say that as one of your biggest fans. You know, I mean, I gobble up everything you write. I just don't understand how you get to this place. But okay, let's not badger.
I can't believe he gave her a pass and he went after Stevens. I'm going after Stevens too, but you're going to go after him after what she just said?
He's saying, how about you let us know what you're going to do to govern our country? She's saying she doesn't have to. I don't understand.
Because we know that Trump's bad. So Kamala Harris, it doesn't matter what she thinks.
Right.
Can you imagine that? I can't even put myself in their shoes anymore.
No. And people are laughing and watching this, and people at home are like, you go get him, Bill Maher. We don't need to know what she's going to do. Okay.
I understand voting against someone. I will say this. I have never voted Democrat. I will always vote against Democrat. In Minnesota, Jason, I think there are great examples. I voted for Tim Pawlenty because he had an R behind his name because I said, at least he's not a Democrat when I was voting for governor. I understand voting against someone, but this has taken it to a whole different level. They are voting against a caricature of a boogeyman at this point. Everything they believe about Donald Trump is false. You and I have broken down all the hoaxes. We have debunked them on our very own show. What this moronic woman believes and what half this country believes about Donald Trump is simply not true. Simply not true. So when they say, I don't need to know what Kamala believes because Trump bad and threat to democracy, like, your whole premise is false to begin with. So yes, you need to know what Kamala thinks about stuff.
It's insane.
Insane. Okay, but Jason, that was her saying, I don't need to know what Kamala says. I'm not going to do an interview with her. It's funny how things change.
Yeah, a week later, she's doing an interview with Kamala. Now, to set this clip up, so there is a story. Kamala's trying to paint herself as the middle-class person, although people in the chat pointed out, like, her parents were rich. They were, I think one was in education, if I remember right, a professor.
A professor, yeah, not like a kindergarten teacher. He was a college professor.
A college professor. They lived in an upper-class neighborhood. They actually lived in Canada a lot of her youth. Kamala Harris is as middle class as I am African American. Like, it's just not a thing. And although I could identify as one, I guess. Oh. And she said she worked at McDonald's to make her like more attainable to people. So now in this hard-hitting interview, the journalist is going to dig into Kamala, talk to us about your McDonald's experience.
And she's going to ask Kamala directly, what McDonald's branch was it? No, just kidding. She won't.
One, just a fact check, because your opponent
there is
almost
no little
every
job.
day. Okay,
there's no such thing as a little job.
Okay, fair. Because your opponent almost every day seems to be talking about this. So I just want to ask you yes or no. At any point in your life, have you served 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, working at a McDonald's? Yes or no? That's it.
I have.
Okay. Now the other job. But
it was not a small job. Like, I did the fries. I mean,
I hate her so much. I hate everything about this clip so much. I hate half this country. Jason, where do you even take this?
Well, I was going to say, and folks, this is where you can help us in the chat, right? Because Todd, so this really isn't that huge of a story if she worked at McDonald's or not, but why is she lying about it? And if you had a real journalist, like let's say, Todd, I'm interviewing you. Todd, what was your first job?
Oh, am I Kamala Harris right now, or are you asking for real?
You're Todd Peterson.
I worked at a company that took inventory at Kohl's, at Targets. They gave me a little scanner, and I had to scan every single barcode of every single item in that store. It would take 12 hours.
Who was your boss's name?
I have no idea.
Do you know the company's name?
I don't want to give it out on the podcast.
What was that? Where was it based out of?
Bloomington, Minnesota, Jason.
Okay, so Regis or Wiss or something.
It's funny you know that.
I worked in retail. You could ask me my first job. My first job was at Sears Roebuck and Company on Broadway Avenue in Rochester, Minnesota. My first pay was, I think, like $7 an hour, if I remember right. My boss's name was Barry. Like the guys I worked with, I could tell you, I could give you any information. The hardest thing I learned how to do was fix ratchets in the hardware department. I eventually learned how to mix paint. Now, Todd, like I know a fair amount about my first job. I'm 50 years old. I had that job at 16 years old. Kamala Harris, like if you really want to debunk this, hey, Kamala, what town was it in? What was your boss's name? How long did you work there? Like you could have a 2-minute conversation and get a feeling if this was legitimate or not. And this answer she gives, I was the fry lady. I'm going to call BS on this. I wish her on Rumble only I'd use the words. But because if you know anybody that's worked fast food at McDonald's, and a lot of them are franchised, and there are corporate McDonald's and franchise. When they say, hey, McDonald's headquarters, didn't know she worked there, that could be true. But you don't get to be the fry person.
There's no such thing as a fry person.
Right. The only way you would have been the fry person is if you worked at McDonald's for one day and they started you on fries and you really sucked and they removed you. Like the way the kitchen works is you have to be able to go to all the stations. You get cross-trained on them all. So yes, Kamala would have assembled a Big Mac. And next time you're at McDonald's, you can watch. There is not one person standing there manning the fries for their 4-hour shift. You'll see them go from fries over to something else. They get trained on all the kitchen stuff. The front desk people, the same thing. You'll go from front desk to drive-through. So what Kamal's saying here, if you have any IQ, you can tell she's lying. And that lady, even if she's asking this lame series of questions, should have said, wait a second, so you never made a Big Mac? And if Kamala says no, then it's like, light bells should be going off like, you are lying through your teeth. There's no such thing as a fry person.
Yeah, I have not been in a McDonald's or a fast food restaurant for years now because it's poison. But when I went there, that would have been the time that Kamala Harris would have worked there. When you go to the counter, you say, I want a number 2. That person would go to the fries. They'd scoop it out and fill it in your little basket, go back to the counter, drop it in your bag. You're not the fry person. You happen to do French fries. It's all such a scam. And Jason, I saw comments like, there is no way off the top of her head she just magically rhymed sesame seed bun with that song. The question on Twitter was, how many takes did they need to get that synced up just right? This is so inauthentic. I don't care if Kamala Harris worked at McDonald's or not. Honestly, if she did or didn't, it has zero bearing on what she wants to do to this country as a leader. I don't care what Donald Trump did when he was 16. I don't care what Kamala Harris did when she was 16. I care what they're going to do in the White House in 2024. But why are you lying about this? Why is your response to how are you going to help America's economy? And it's, well, I was middle class. Like, she is such a meme of a person. And I can't get over the fact that half this country is going to vote for her this. Like, what are you voting for?
Well, and if you look at so what drives me nuts, and once again, and it's funny, Thomas Lorries, who cares working at McDonald's to not qualify to become
my
president.
point exactly, Tomas.
Right. We are like, we're getting lost in this, but what drives me nuts is this clearly illustrates how deceptive the media is. Like, nobody even asked her what McDonald's she worked at. Nobody asked her how long she worked there. No, like, they are completely giving her a pass when it's obvious she's lying. And Fally jumping in again. First job was at McDonald's. She's lying.
Boom, Fally.
Boom. Like anybody who's worked at McDonald's and she is obviously, or even eaten at McDonald's, there is no such thing as a fry person. And so she is obviously lying, and the media is obviously giving her a pass on it, and it's the most ridiculous thing ever.
And that's the bigger story. I don't know if Tomas is trying to flame us or flame her. Who cares? Like, honestly, I don't care. Nobody cares about the McDonald's story. It's the larger story of the media framing this up incorrectly. She even set it up like Donald Trump is, and I think she even said like your predecessor, because they can't say Trump's name. Like, he's saying this about McDonald's. Like, they're trying to make it a Trump story. It is not a Trump story. It's a Kamala Harris lies story. It's a Kamala Harris's inauthentic story. Everything about her is fraudulent. She can't even sit through a softball interview and answer questions. Like, that's the story. McDonald's is a proxy for the larger story of what the Harris campaign represents.
Right. And it's funny because shout out to Todd. He's going to start launching going to do a solo show a couple days a week. Maybe I'll join him someday on it. But it's this corrupt media that lets this stuff happen, because this woman could have asked 4 questions that clearly would have illustrated Kamala Harris is lying. The clip would have went viral, and Kamala Harris's campaign would have been over, because she's just a lying liar. And like the media could have ended her right there on its stupid story, because Kamala's lying, and they're going to let her they're just going to let her get away with it.
But Jason, later on in the interview, they asked her a real question, and her response when she was truthful was quite frightening. Should we listen to that one too?
Let's listen to that one.
Are people there that are stressed, that feel that they're at capacity? Communities around the country that have legal immigration, many have said we're at capacity. And many feel like the government has said to them, well, adapt, sit down, be quiet. This is how it is. What would a Harris administration do for those communities who've taken in many, many legal immigrants but are at capacity?
Well, first of all, we do have a broken immigration system, and it needs to be fixed. And if we take a step back, months ago, some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress came together with others, proposed a border security bill that would have put 1,500 new border agents on the border to help those hardworking border.
I didn't know when you were going to pause this video, Jason, just to correct the record on this. I think we do this every week. We have a clip of Harris saying the exact same thing, 1,500 new border agents that, Jason, like you have pointed out, are not going to be standing on the physical border. They're going to be processing illegals faster so they can jettison them across the country. But we have broken down the border bill, folks. I think let's just say it was $200 billion. $100 billion went to Ukraine. However much more went to Israel, Taiwan. Very little money goes to the actual border. And to be sure, it's not about building a wall and getting troops stationed at the border. It is simply about processing people to get them into the interior of the country faster. Everything she says here is a lie. Yes, it is a broken border. She is the vice president. This is on her, but she is making sure that you think that day one, it's going to be a brand new start. Well, but we're not even into the worst part yet.
Yeah, and it's funny. We've broken down this border bill numerous times. Folks, let me make one thing explicitly clear. The border bill she's talking about was awful. It still allowed the same number of people in the country that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden let in. It literally
codified that number. They said, what's the peak number the Biden-Harris admin is letting in? Let's codify that.
Yeah, I forget the math. I actually added it up because it was like encounters and exclude parents. But I want to say it allowed like 8 million people to come in a year, some ridiculous number. And the law codified that. So she is telling a truth, like, hey, it did have some more Border Patrol agents, but they just processed the 8 million people that are too many people coming in. And that reporter, I'll give her credit. She asked a real question. American citizens are like, you're bringing all of these people into our towns. By the way, they're not going to Mar-a-Lago or Kamala Harris's cushy neighborhood.
Vineyard, we tried that.
Yeah, they're going to working class neighborhoods. They're sucking up the community goods and services. They're sitting on welfare and government programs, and like you can be as charitable as you want, but you can only do so much charity. You can't take in the entire world's poor population. I'm sorry if that's news to you that you can't relocate all of the world's poor, uneducated, unproductive people into America and expect us to have a country. You're a retard. Like, if you think we can bring millions of people in here that are not going to contribute, I'm not saying they're not all going to contribute. Like, there's some that work hard, and hey, I know a Haitian who works hard. I'm just saying, if you look at that bulk of that population, we covered it last week in our Springfield episode. Like, the business guy's like, yeah, we bring in 1,000 and we get 50 good ones. And I'm like, you have 950 people on welfare right now that are never going to advance. So you can get 50 workers. Are you kidding me? Sorry.
Oh, but Jason, you and I paused it before the worst part. Stay tuned.
Our agents who are there right now working around the clock would have put more money into stemming the flow of fentanyl, which is killing Americans around our country and devastating communities.
Just a reminder, she's been vice president for 3.5 years while this is all happening.
Would have put more resources into our ability to prosecute transnational criminal organizations, which in my career.
Jason, more on that in the Rumble-only segment, transnational criminals. Folks, you will not want to miss some of these stories coming out right now about Air Force or Trump Force One or Trump Air One or whatever it calls it.
That was wild.
I've prosecuted. Donald Trump got word of the bill, realized it was going to fix a problem he wanted to run on, and told him to kill the bill, don't put it up for a vote. He killed a bill that would have actually been a solution because he wants to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And that's part of what needs to be addressed. And my pledge is that when elected president, if the American people will have me, I will bring that bill back and I will sign it into law. And we need a comprehensive plan that includes what we need to do to fortify not only our border, but deal with the fact that we also need to create pathways for people to earn citizenship.
And there it is. There it is. Jason, how many illegals are in the country right now?
Nobody knows the real number, but probably 20 to 30 to 40 million.
I'm glad you said nobody knows, because DC politicians don't care. The more the merrier. When those illegals, if they get citizenship, especially the ones that have come recently, how might they vote?
Well, I'm just going to say, and actually, folks, this will be a shout out to us. I was really proud of the podcast we did last week where we broke down this Springfield as an example. So the government funds non-government organizations that get ridiculously rich off government money going to third world countries. They essentially recruit workers to be brought into towns like Springfield and paid minimum wage. They buy off the Republican land Chamber of Commerce by saying, hey, we're going to bring in cheap labor. They're going to get government money to rent your apartments for higher rates. They're going to get food stamps to shop at your store. They're going to get government money to eat at your restaurant. And then, oh yeah, the best part, they get to work in your factory for peanuts. It's like a version of indentured servitude. All of them get rich. Now, these people that are living off nothing, $1,700 a year is what the average person makes in Haiti. $1,700 a year. They're living in beyond third world conditions with no indoor plumbing. And so they aren't necessarily coming looking to join the American dream or start a business or becoming a doctor. They just want a roof over their head. And but like, it's set up for them to make money. Now, are those people going to vote for the Democrats that are cool bringing them over and throwing them on the government dole? Or are they going to vote for Republicans that want to send them home?
You answer that question, folks. I think we have a smart audience. Even Democrats, even someone with Kamala's IQ could probably answer that question too. And make no mistake, it is not by accident. Just to reference Elon Musk, we say this a lot too. There are two big reasons they're bringing them over. Number one, they get congressional seats. There is apportionment meted out because every person in the United States, citizen or otherwise, is counted in the census, which means if you're in California, you get more electoral votes. If you're in a congressional district, that district gets larger, you get more seats. And then if you're a citizen, you have more voting power. And it is not an accident, I don't think, Jason, that all of these people seem to be, at least, I have seen different charts showing numbers, but seems like they're going to these swing states or red states. And then, man, imagine that. You're sending all these millions of would-be Democrat voters into a swing state or red state. I wonder how that affects it, future elections under the Electoral College everyone gets to vote a certain way. So it's not by accident. It is hard to say this is all by accident.
And some of it's really the long game. And I mean, at the time when people said it, like you were a tinfoil hat guy, but when I was young, they were talking about all the illegals going into California, and they said, well, you're going to have a couple things. One, like you're going to get disproportionate representation in Congress. I've heard numbers that it's like 7 or 8 seats extra in the House of Representatives they get in California from illegals. Nobody knows the exact number because we don't really count them. So one, they get California has more power in DC because of the illegals. Two, now that the illegals are entering second and third generation after being, and their kids were granted citizenship, they are voting blue. Ironically, Democrats brought them in. Democrats give them free money. Democrats keep promising them more free money. And now they're voting Democrat. How weird is that? And I mean, seriously, in California, even if you look at the number of people that are here as legal citizens after 40 years, because this all started back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, like their kids are now getting old enough and they're starting to vote, and, they're going to vote Democrat. So we'll be hard pressed to see a Republican in California.
Ever. I mean, let's say that there is naturalization. I don't know how you recover short of, you have to undo then the huge swing in Democrat voters, but then undo all the brainwashing and propaganda that's really taken hold for people's entire lives. Like, that is a tall ask. Hard to think that there would be a future where there's a Republican president at that point if this is allowed to go through. But Jason, again, people are voting for this. They're like, yeah, we should have 20 million illegals naturalized. They can become citizens and vote and get the same rights as me. And we should let all the criminals back on the streets, and we should send money overseas and have higher taxes. This sounds great for America. I don't know who thinks this is a good idea.
Well, yeah, and I gotta say, folks, Todd and I, we tend to be pretty charitable guys. We mentioned we're doing work with Republic. We're not making any money on that. We're trying to do something to help save the country, unite voters. We give to our church. We volunteer. We do those things. But even we understand there is only so much charity one can do. And illegals in these third world nations, I mean, if you have no problem with the number of Haitians we brought in, why don't we just bring them all in? Like, it's kind of like when the government, we talked about it in our tax episode a few months ago, where if the government can really just print as much money as they want, why are we even paying taxes? Because like they can just print the money. And the fact is, whether you like it or not, our country is broke, and we can't afford to continue bringing in people that are going to be a drain on our public resources, because we don't have money to pay for that. And if your answer is let's just continue raising taxes, like, you're an idiot.
And even if we had the money, we're under no moral obligation to help people. America exists to further the interest of Americans. And right. Jason, I keep looking around for all my Democrat friends like, hey, have you let in a Haitian recently? Have you invited a Mexican national family into your house? Like, no. Have you written a larger check to the IRS? Well, no. They don't stand for anything they claim to support. They're going to vote for this. They're going to vote for this woman you can see on your screen here, even though they believe in nothing that themselves. They just want to feel good. They want to virtue signal to the rest of you, I'm a better person. I voted for the black woman who wants to make sure everyone feels welcome in America. Means nothing. They're saying these words. It means nothing, but they're not acting on those words. They're just saying it. They're going to tell you that they're better, but the only thing they're doing is making this country worse, and I wish we could get that through to them.
Todd said a great line, too, and then it's actually going to segue into our next topic very good. Americans came over, we conquered America, which we did. Will wrote a great piece on the AmericanTribune.news talking about how we conquered the Indians. Folks, I hate to say it, but that's how it works in the world. If you're not strong enough to hold your land, you lose it. And hopefully we never encounter that in America. But all over in Europe, they fight over land. The entire world, they fight over land. We came over here, we took this land, we conquered it, and we did it to make life better for us, our future generations, our children, all that stuff. We didn't do it to make it better for illegal immigrants so we could let them come in with their social norms. Like, if they want to mess up Haiti, they can, like, if you want to come and adopt the American way of life, and I'm not talking about like your religion or whatnot, but hard work and all that stuff, then great. But if you don't want to learn English, you don't want to learn how we do stuff around here, stay home. Just stay home. Go fix your own stuff.
I have some things that I'm going to say for Rumble, Jason, because we have a lot to get into. I was almost going to get our pages, I think, destroyed.
Yeah.
But so talking about, I'm going to go back to the title of the episode here, Kamala's train wreck of a week. If you listen to these interviews, it's on day one, I'm going to do this. I'm setting a new path forward for America. However she frames it up, she wants you to ignore the fact that she is the sitting vice president in the Biden-Harris administration. It has always been Biden-Harris, which if you go back to any other presidency, like just for a second, imagine Trump-Pence. Do you think Donald Trump needed Mike Pence to run on? Biden, though, pandering to the black community by hyphenating Harris's name and saying, look, we have a black vice president. That never would have happened. But Kamala Harris thinking, nope, forget about that. I'm not vice president. I was never dubbed the border czar. Take a listen as Joe Biden, though. He's had it. Last week, he put on the MAGA hat. He walks up the plane carrying the MAGA hat. And now this week, as Kamala Harris tries to distance herself from the administration, here's Joe Biden going on The View of all places to talk about how, no. Kamala Harris is actually a really important person in my administration.
And as vice president, there wasn't a single thing that I did that she couldn't do. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to delegate her responsibility on everything from foreign policy to domestic policy.
It's short. I'm going to play it.
And as vice president, there wasn't a single thing that I did that she couldn't do. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to delegate her responsibility on everything from foreign policy to domestic policy.
Nothing is by accident, Jason. I happen to think this is Joe Biden giving the middle finger to Kamala Harris. Oh, you're going to try to run your campaign as a day one campaign? Well, F that. You are part of this administration. You are capable. You are delegated tasks. Like, you own all of this. I think Joe Biden behind the scenes is super pissed off that he got pushed out. Whatever deal he made and agreed to, he's still upset about getting pushed out. He's not letting Kamala go easily.
I was going to say, so here's my conspiracy theory. So Joe Biden said, what do you want me to do? You're going to make me president, and I just got to do this stuff that's going to ruin our country? Okay, great. I got to pass the Green New Deal. Oh, wait, we're going to call it the Inflation Reduction Act, which we played the video. He admitted it was Green New Deal stuff. And all of a sudden, after doing it, and everybody's like, this is horrible. Like, Joe Biden was going to lose in a landslide. So not only do they say, hey, Joe, all that stuff we told you to do that you did, like, that's getting you kicked out of office. He actually, like, Kamala's running like she wasn't right there doing it. And Joe Biden, I think you're right. I think Joe Biden's like, F you guys. Like, I'm going to tell people Kamala's here, threw the MAGA hat on last week. Like, we might be seeing Joe Biden slip in the shower in the next few weeks. And like, oh my gosh, we'll have a state funeral of dear old Joe 2 weeks before the election.
Well, Jason, I can't help but think we're waiting for an October to surprise. And I know in our Rumble Only section, we're going to talk about the Trump side of things. There are some insane stories coming around the internet right now about Donald Trump. But when it comes to the Democrat Party, Kamala Harris has lost all momentum. The media hype cannot be sustained. It was too soon for her to get in there. Like July, August, September, October, like 4 months of sustained media hyperventilation. You can't do it. I think we see a Kamala Harris presidency sometime in October. Joe Biden steps down. Kamala Harris steps in, and now she's the incumbent come November 5th. Is that the election date?
Yep. Yeah, and then I think it'll also be coupled with some sort of escalating international trauma to distract us from what's going on. Kind of like you saw, for those who didn't see, Zelensky was in town. We just gave him like $7 billion more or something like that.
Signing.
He was actually did a photo op in Pennsylvania with Governor Josh Shapiro where they were signing missiles. Hey, Todd, do you know where the U.S. has authorized them to shoot those missiles that Josh Shapiro just autographed?
Does it start with M and end in Moscow? Like, we can fire into Russia with those, can't we?
Yes. Yeah. So in the last week, it hasn't been covered by the media, but we gave Zelensky permission to start shooting long-range missiles into Russia. Folks, what's Russia going to do with that? Really?
Probably not just sit back and take it.
I'm just saying. And if you want that to happen, and this kind of ties into the next video we're going to talk about, What if you want to go to war with Russia? What do? Take it to the floor of the House, take it to the Senate. Let's do an official declaration war and say we're just at war with Russia. We're cool shooting missiles into Russia. And why don't we do that? Because people won't vote for that.
I'm not asking this. When was the last time we had an official declaration of war, Jason? Like, of all the conflicts we've been in my lifetime and your lifetime, when was the last official declaration? World War II?
Yeah, I'd have to look it up.
Right now. I don't know.
Somebody's going to fact check me, but I think it was World War II. I don't think there was an official declaration of war. And this is how this always goes. We stick our toe in the water and we start shipping stuff over, and then we start funding it too. We fund both sides of it. And then eventually we get deeper and deeper in, and then it's like, okay, well, I mean, we got in and out of Nam or Afghanistan without ever declaring war. It's crazy.
Crazy. All right. We have we got some places to go. Do you want to do... We did the Joe one. Here's the last thing with Kamala Harris. I don't know how much time we need to spend on this, Jason, but Kamala Harris has basically said she wants to eliminate the filibuster if it means we can codify Roe into law.
Now, Todd, you should explain what the filibuster is.
The filibuster is your last hope to save America. So the filibuster allows the minority party in Congress and the Senate to say, hold on a second, we're not going to let a slim majority ram through everything they want to. And so you look at Joe Biden has the White House, Democrats have the White House, the Senate has the Senate, or the Democrats have the Senate. Thank goodness the House is GOP led since the 2022 midterms, because if the Democrats controlled every single house, you would have a majority that could basically do whatever they wanted. The filibuster is a carved out rule that says we're going to speak for so long on the House floor. We're not going to allow this bill to actually come to a vote, because it would be catastrophic. And these are rules. It's not actually an official rule in the Constitution. This is just something that parties agreed to, I want to say in the 19th century at some point. And it's just been one of those unspoken, unwritten rules that we have some decorum in the House. We're not going to just let the majority party have complete control in Washington, D.C. Just like we saw with Harry Reid when he wanted to get Merrick Garland on the Supreme Court. He basically said, I'm going to get rid of the supermajority vote. I'm just going to go to simple majority vote. Instead of 60 senators voting on Garland, I just want 51. And Mitch McConnell threw that back in his face, and that's how we got Trump's Supreme Court justices on there. He only needed the 51. He said, you want to go simple majority? I'll go simple majority. But the filibuster, with Republicans having the minority in the Senate, they can at least delay some things Democrats want to do. Kamala Harris says, F it. If I get a slim majority, it is going to be wolves eating the sheep. That is what a simple democracy means. And she says, I will abolish every standing rule in the Senate, in Congress, to make sure I get my way. It is tyranny, plain and simple.
Yeah, and I guess to put in just really simple English, too, for folks, the Constitution was set up where for any law to pass, basically 2/3 of people had to agree to it. There were devices in place to make sure that it wasn't like 51% we do this, we do it. It was designed where you really needed a big consensus among Americans before the federal government got involved. Now, if you want to do something crazy in your state, you go set up your state rules. But at the federal level, it was never designed that, we got 51%, we can do whatever we want. And they had filibuster, there were super majorities, there's a lot of procedural things built into that. But essentially, our founding fathers said, okay, let's make sure the federal government doesn't do anything stupid. And so let's make sure that it takes a large consensus. They have gotten rid of, in my lifetime, most all of those protections. The last one is the filibuster. And guess what?
Do you think when Democrats get asked about it, are they going to support or reject that?
Vice President Harris.
Bang.
Vice President Harris endorsed a filibuster carve-out of codifying Roe. What is your reaction to that?
It's something our caucus will discuss in the next session of Congress. Yes. It's something our caucus will discuss.
Short of saying no, that would be detrimental and catastrophic to the United States. I will not support Kamala Harris getting rid of the filibuster. Schumer, Democrats in Washington, D.C. are selling this country out simply for Roe. That's a separate conversation about the thing that women want to vote for in this country. Schumer will not commit to keeping the filibuster. It tells me all I need to hear.
Right. And it's important to understand, too, that, how can I say this? Part of why you want to have these broad majorities is you don't want it to be every time one party gets 51%, they do a bunch of crazy stuff. The other party gets 51%, they do a bunch of crazy stuff, because then your country's just bouncing back and forth. What you want to have is you want to require large consensus prior to taking action on things. But Democrats, Kamala's going to push them to get rid of the filibuster. She doesn't care. She's a radical Marxist, and she will do anything she can to get her crazy agenda through.
Yeah, I mean, this should frighten everybody. Add this to the list. You only need one reason to not vote for Kamala Harris. Add ending the filibuster to that growing list. Just the fact that she wants to get rid of that should say, okay, I'm not going to vote for her anymore. Actually, that'd be a fun list to make, Jason. Every single reason, if you're a single issue voter, just one reason why you shouldn't vote for Kamala Harris. But the filibuster, I don't think people can appreciate just how vital that is. Like Jason said, you need at least 60%, a supermajority in Congress, so it's not just a pendulum swinging back and forth, ripping the country apart. All right, Jason, I really want to get to this immigration story because Eric Adams is a Democrat, and now the boot of the feds is coming down hard on him. And a lot of people are asking, like, Eric Adams, Democrat mayor of New York, he seems to check all the right boxes. Why him?
Well, yeah, and just to kind of, we've covered immigration a lot on the podcast. Todd's covered it a lot in the videos that he makes. But so simply put, we gave a high-level overview. The Democrats are super cool bringing in third world people into our nation. They're throwing them in a lot of red areas or inner cities. They're putting a huge drain on public resources. Frankly, the citizens of the cities are pissed. We've showed a ton of videos. We usually have to do that on Rumble only, where they're like, this is crap. And Democrat mayors are feeling the heat. They're like, okay, the citizens are going to throw us out of office. Eric Adams, who we're not a huge fan of, like, he came out and said, yeah, you guys got to stop this. This is killing New York. And are you going to show the clip where it shows Adams and the mayor of Chicago, whose citizens are both equally pissed?
Yeah, I've got Adams first. This is what got him into trouble, and then we'll see the Chicago mayor one. But this is what Eric Adams said. I think it's a year old now, but now he's finally facing the charges.
My budget will give you those resources. My budget will make sure we have after-school program. My budget will make sure we invest in seniors. The problem is D.C. has abandoned us, and they need to be paying their course to this national problem. So I'm with you. We need to mobilize together to tell our national government New York City is the financial capital of this country and state. Everyone should be surrounding New York City to say New York City should not be going through this. So
pretty clear message.
Hey, Joe Biden. Hey, Washington, D.C. I need help with this. Do you want help? How about some federal indictments instead?
Well, should we play the Johnson clip too?
Yeah, then I want to come back to, I got some thoughts.
Yeah, then we'll come back to this.
34 aldermen voted for the $51 million. It did not come out without a lot of controversy, especially from some black residents who say the money should go towards Chicago residents who have been neglected for years.
Very much committed to a revenue stream or revenue streams that ensure that we are dealing with the crises of those who are unhoused in the city of Chicago, while also making sure that there's room for those that we are welcoming.
We need to allocate some of this money for our black children, for the black community.
$51 million for migrants brought some loud and vocal opposition from the public, to the point where police had to escort people out of the city council meeting several times. Mayor Brandon Johnson asked for a 2-minute breather.
Can I just say on a side note, why does every mayor of Chicago look like a Batman villain?
Not by accident.
Not by accident.
They are villains, so there is that.
Right.
Democrat mayors of Chicago, absolutely villainous.
So you have 2 Democrat mayors, both are black. I'm going to guess, Todd, do you think both these men have committed crimes?
100%.
I don't think there's anybody in politics that if you went through their books that you wouldn't find some shady stuff. We cover a lot of it on the show. You got one black mayor who says we need the federal government to stop. You got one black mayor who says, no, citizens, you need to eat the turd sandwich and let these come in. We're going to give them $51 million. Todd, what did they do this week to Adams?
He is now facing federal charges on, get this, Jason, I believe $100,000 of bribes, including like upgrading airfare. So of all the corruption in Washington, D.C., all the millions of dollars getting handed out, I think Senator Bob Menendez took millions of dollars in gold bars from Egypt. He's still a Democrat senator from New Jersey. But Eric Adams, $100,000 in alleged corruption scandals, including upgrading your airplane seat. That is enough for the federal government to come down on you because you spoke out of turn.
Now, I got to say, let's assume you're a critical thinker, our audience is, but just to give you a way to explain this to your Democrat friends. So all the politicians in the House of Representatives, in the Senate, Nancy Pelosi, Kevin McCarthy, with all their billions of dollars of money coming in, going out, all this stuff, they pinged Eric Adams on $100,000. And I think, don't quote me, I think it was from like 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's not like it was yesterday. This was pre-mayor stuff.
And it was talking about like, literally, he got like personal things, like upgrading his airfare things. I mean, if this guy were serving in the House, he wouldn't even make the list of most corrupt things.
They'd be like, Adams, you know, you can be more corrupt in the Congress, right?
Yeah, you're probably right. His buddies would haul him in and go, hey, Eric, we're all making a ton of money illegally. Like,
you're only upgrading to a coach? Like, you're upgrading to premium and coach? Like, come on, Adams, get with it.
Yeah. Like, dude, I'm eating lobster and doing blow off a hooker's butt. And, you know, a 5-star hotel.
Speaking of hookers and blow, Fally lets us know, folks, do your own homework on Marion Barry. You wonder why all these like large urban black communities, Chicago, DC, New York, never get anywhere. You got these morons running the show. But yeah, look up Marion Barry if you want to have a good laugh. Like, this is why there's not white supremacy. There are just corrupt black mayors in these large cities.
Right. So you got one black guy who's like, no, like, you citizens need to get in line. You got the other guy saying, you're right, this is really bad. And they suddenly indict. And here's the thing. Eric Adams committed crimes. It's great if you commit crimes and go to jail. But here's a selective prosecution thing. The only guy they go after, take every big city mayor, and the only guy they're going to go after is Eric Adams.
Yeah. I will say, I listened to that speech. And so I was an assistant principal, Jason. You know that before we got started in our venture here. As an assistant principal, you're not making the shots. That's either the principal or the superintendent, depending on the size of the district. I would go into teachers' classrooms and say, sorry, guys, my hands are tied with this new stupid policy. Sorry that we can't expel kids anymore. Sorry that you got punched in the face and I got to bring the kid back to your classroom now. And by the way, you need to apologize to him for not recognizing his blackness in front of your whiteness. And you have white supremacy going on in your room. And let me change the posters on your walls. I would always say, my hands are tied. It was the principal's decision to do that. I'm just carrying out the orders. I got a little bit of that from Adams, like, hey, New Yorkers, even though I am the mayor here and I can totally make policies for the city and I could have not welcomed 10,000 illegals in one day and kicked you out of your homes and apartments and hotels and made room for them. Not my fault. I need more money from Joe Biden. I need the Biden administration to secure the border. There's a little bit of that. Like, I understand they're squashing him because he spoke out against Biden. That is not an accident. There's not even a coincidence. They're just going after him because he spoke out against Joe Biden and the regime. But at the same time, you own this too, Eric Adams, because you could definitely have a different policy on the ground. No, we're not going to house them here. I'm going to send them to DC. I'm going to send them to Brandon's house. I'm not going to put them up in hotels. I'm not going to take taxpayer dollars like Brandon Johnson did. You can definitely allocate resources differently. His hands are not clean of this immigration mess. And here we go again. People in Chicago, people in New York, stop voting for Democrats. What do you think is going to happen? All right. Underslept, overcaffeinated, coming up on an hour, Jason. There you go.
I was going to say that. I love when Todd's fired up and ranting. And, you know, folks, that's kind of fun. We really appreciate, like on Rumble, we get 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 views a week. We get a bunch of views on Facebook, you know, live across all the platforms. We'll get a few hundred people joining us, which is kind of fun. But a lot of this is just our way of just like putting out in the universe, like, Like, so maybe normal people out there are like, you see the stuff and you think it's retarded and they think you're stupid. Like, you're not alone. Like, this is retarded and stupid. And there are more like you out there that see the corrupt media going, so all they're going to ask her about McDonald's is, did you work there? Like, nothing to corroborate it. Or
she did the fries too, and we're just moving on. Yeah, half the country thinks that's a great response. Sesame seed buns.
Right, yeah, and then you see this, like, they're going after the corrupt mayor of New York. Oh, it has nothing to do with the fact he spoke out against federal government. Right, okay. Like, oh, that's funny. But we got to get to some wild content, but we're going to have to go Rumble only. We're covering the first story we're going to cover. I think we got to talk missiles.
We got to talk missiles and Trump's airplane, folks. We will leave it at that. It is exactly what you think. This is crazy stuff coming out right now. And of course, it's only on Twitter because the rest of state media is definitely not going to cover this.
Right. And folks, like I mentioned earlier, next week, Todd and I probably won't be here live. We're traveling. By the way, go check out republic.us. It's still a work in progress. What the vision is designed to be a spot where you can post local election stuff. It's designed to unite Americans to help fight back against a tyrannical government, both Democrat and Republican. You know, they like candidates. Like, if you're an RFK supporter or a Trump supporter, you know, you can find a home there. And we're building a network where people can get together and communicate with each other and share information. Because if we don't find a way to stop this corrupt uniparty, the Kamala Harris, she was endorsed by Fortune 500 CEOs, by the Cheneys, by the military industrial complex, by all the generals who get rich off that. Like, folks, you can see it right in front of you.
Apparently you can't. Half this country is going to vote for Kamala. But Jason, we're going to hop over to Rumble. Facebook friends, make the switch right now. Get the Rumble app. If you're on desktop, go to rumble.com. We are at the American Tribune over on Rumble. Otherwise, you can find Jason and I on Twitter where we're streaming. I am TamTrib, at TamTrib is how it is sounded. And you are J-Rob from Minnesota. But folks, we'll see you in 60 seconds when we make the switch.